Hang on, guys. Right, hang on.
Hang on, guys, we're coming.
We're getting there. Amateur hour. Here we go. Nah, got no volume. Is volume on the clip?
You gotta mute yourself. Nah, can it?
All right, pull it out.
Can it?
Pull it out. Put me in. Pull Mel out. How you going, guys? All right, so that didn't work. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Let's yeah. Yeah, Sunday night, guys. We've come a long way, hey? We're about to start another week. So yeah. This tonight, guys, is a bit of a look. Some of you will get something. I think a lot of you will get something out of it. Okay, but I think it's another movie, guys. We're at the time of waking people up still. Okay, trying to get on our side. We done a Forest of the Fallen out here at the harbour today, and it was an exceptional response. Okay, it really was. All right, people are wanting to know. So again, there was volume, it was low, but it was coming up. Thanks for that. We'll work it out, Judy. So, guys, this is another one from a guy over at IM. We're going to have a chat called IM from Telegram. We're going to have a chat with him, but they put this together, and it's sort of a roundup of the message is that we are the people now. My message is from this is that we are the people now who will be making the change. I was just talking again with May San then, and she brought up the fact that how I took the term climate change as us, that we are changing the climate, and yeah, again, she reckons we were right on the money. That's exactly what they're worried about. They haven't got a change of climate coming. They would like to think they have, and this is going to show you where they would like to have taken us, guys. All right, and this projects right up to the year 3000 at the end, actually. All right, and gives you an idea of what could have projected through. But the point is, we are here for a reason, right? And the reason is that we stop this thing now, all right? So, yeah, there is no New World Order. There is no WF. It ain't happening, all right, because the people are coming together and we ain't letting it happen. All right, so let's get straight into it, guys. It goes for about 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it's Sunday night. It's 7 o'clock, so you'll be finished by 9:40. What do I say? Let's have a look at it, guys, and then we'll get it up onto the website. I've had it for about a week. I just haven't, put it out yet, but it's quite interesting, guys.
Just let us know if you got volume.
Yeah, make sure we got volume and that going with you, because Kaz ain't in here.
It's beautiful.
So we're not so different after all.
I wish that were true.
But there must be alternatives. You must have some technology that could solve our problem.
Your problem is not technology. The problem is you. You lack the will to change.
Then help us change.
I cannot change your nature. You treat the world as you treat each other.
But every civilization reaches a crisis point eventually.
Most of them don't make it.
Yours did? How?
Our sun was dying. We had to evolve in order to survive.
So it was only when your world was threatened with destruction that you became what you are now?
Yes.
Well, that's where we are. You say we're on the brink of destruction, and you're right. But it's only on the brink that people find the will to change. Only at the precipice do we evolve. This is our moment. Don't take it from us. We are close to an answer.
Independent researchers have been warning for years that COVID mRNA vaccines contain secret ingredients. And now we have confirmation of this claim. A deep dive into Pfizer's murky history reveals that they partnered with an Israeli to develop programmable nanorobots to be injected into people to alter their DNA, issue them with an IP address, and connect them to the internet. This may sound like wild science fiction, but when you see the stone-cold evidence that we've got coming up for you, it'll be clear that what sounded like a horror movie suddenly looks like a living nightmare for the vaccinated. Before we dive in, subscribe to the People's Voice Rumble channel if you haven't already, and join the People's Voice Locals community to join our incredible community and support the channel. Are the vaccinated already walking, talking human cyborgs, fulfilling an as yet unknown function for the global elites, before they keel over and die at the flick of a switch? That's the question that must be asked, following our investigation, which brings to light Pfizer's top secret and disturbing pre-pandemic work to create programmable nanorobots to be secretly injected into people to alter their DNA and seize the ultimate form of control over humanity. In 2015, Pfizer partnered with Bar Ilan University in Israel, who'd been developing these programmable nanobots. What was it that made Pfizer want to work with this university on their top secret DNA nanorobot program? Let's take a look at the 2013 presentation delivered by Bar Ilan scientist Dr. Ido Bachelet to a room full of pharma executives, demonstrating the programmable nanorobots under a microscope. Here he explains that one syringe can hold 1,000 billion robots.
So these nanobots have been envisioned in the past 30 years by people like Eric Drexler and Robert Freitas and Ray Kurzweil. Today I'm going to show you that these robots exist here in Israel. And I'll show you this syringe, which I brought from my lab. So this syringe has inside it 1,000 billion robots. So these robots are each 50 nanometers long, which as you can see in this slide under the microscope. 50 nanometers is about 2,000 times thinner than the thickness of your hair. Okay, and these robots were born actually 3 years ago in a research I did with Sean Douglas, now a UCSF professor. But over the past year and a half, in my group at Bar Ilan University, we've been developing and testing robots for a variety of medical and therapeutic tasks.
Remember, this presentation was delivered in 2013, meaning they had this technology for over 10 years now. Why was it kept hidden from us? Perhaps because they always intend to use this technology secretly. Let's take another look at what these nanobots look like under a microscope. Those who've been watching our previous videos will recognize that these nanorobots look exactly like the mysterious entities that independent researchers found in their investigations of the COVID mRNA injection contents under the microscope. Many doctors, mainstream media, and fact checkers have tried to convince us that these vaccine contents are nothing more than salt crystals. Now we know the truth. They are DNA nanorobots. We know this because we have uncovered evidence of paid-off scientists admitting it themselves. So, what are these nanorobots? And why would Pfizer and Big Pharma want to secretly inject thousands of billions of them into unsuspecting human beings? In his presentation, Bachelet bragged about how they can ensure that they don't lose control of the nanorobots after they've been pumped inside human bodies. As Bachelet explained, the controller is connected to the internet like an Xbox, and the controller actually links these nanobots to the network. That's right. The nanorobots have an actual IP address, and they can be accessed remotely.
And the interesting thing is that because the controller, like the Xbox, is connected to the internet, the controller actually links those nanobots to the network. So they have an actual IP address, and they can be accessed from a remote device sitting on the same network. For example, my doctor's smartphone.
Now, here's the kicker. As Bachelet confirmed, whoever is secretly controlling these DNA nanorobots can turn them on and off with the flick of a switch and release payloads into human bodies. Hold on, payloads? Payloads of what?
So this is how the nanorobot looks like. It's built from DNA, as you can see. And it resembles a clamshell in which you can put cargo. You can load anything you want, starting from small molecules, drugs, proteins, enzymes, even nanoparticles. Virtually any function that molecules can carry out can be loaded into the nanobot, and the nanobot can be programmed to turn on and off these functions at certain places and at certain times. This is how it controls molecules. And so this particular nanorobot is in an off state. It's closed. It securely sequesters anything you put, any payload you put inside, so it's not accessible to the outside of the robot. For example, it cannot engage target cells or target tissues. But we can program the nanobot to switch to an on state based on molecular cues it finds from the environment. So programming the robot is virtually like assembling a combination lock, using disks that recognize digits. But of course, instead of digits, we're assembling disks that recognize molecules. So these robots can turn from off to on, and when they do, any cargo inside is now accessible. It can attack target cells or target tissues or other robots, which you'll see later on. And so we have robots that can switch from off to on and off again. We can control their kinetics of transition. We can control which payload becomes accessible at which time point. And let's see an example how these robots, for example, control a cancer drug. So what you can do is you can take nanobots, you can put the nastiest cancer drug you may find into the robots, even a cancer drug that's been withdrawn because of excessive toxicity. Okay, when the robots are locked and you put them in a mixture of healthy cells and tumor cells, nothing happens. No cell is affected because the robot safely sequesters those drugs inside. When we unlock the robots, all cells die because the cargo inside the drug attacks anything on site.
As vaccinated people continue dying in unprecedented numbers across the globe, it's worth asking what these payloads contain. Could the elite be controlling who dies and when, thanks to the DNA nanorobots that they've been quietly and deceitfully pumping into the bodies of billions of humans worldwide? If you listen to what Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla and his cronies, including Bill Gates, have to say, the answer couldn't be clearer. But first, an important message from our sponsor. Pfizer's DNA nanorobots might sound nightmarish, but for those who've been paying attention, they're nothing more than Klaus Schwab's fourth industrial revolution being put into action. Globalist control freak Bill Gates has been working behind the scenes to computerize the human body for years. Did you know that Microsoft was granted exclusive rights to this ability of the body to act as a computer network? Microsoft was awarded US patent 6,754,472, which is titled Method and Apparatus for Transmitting Power and Data Using the Human Body. Gates also holds another patent which he was granted before the pandemic. This one conveniently features the numbers 666. We don't have time to go into detail about these patents, but you can watch our previous videos which went into detail about the disturbing plans of Gates and the elite to intrude upon our bodies for their own benefit. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla is no stranger to the concept either.
I have a question about patient engagement, and you had touched on this before. All of these advances are amazing, but even if you make the greatest drug or the greatest wearable, there's no guarantee that the patient is going to take the drug or wear the device. So how are you thinking about technology to engage the patient?
Yeah. Again, maybe I will use an example. I think it's fascinating what's happening in this field right now. I mean, FDA approved the first electronic pill, if I can call it like that. So it is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet. And once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field. But of course, there will be an initial cost that someone needs to invest.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knew exactly what was going to happen because the global elite have been preparing for the pandemic for years. As he explains, they left their fingerprints all over the crime scene.
Well, vaccines are magic. They can save lives.
Everybody thinks, when they hear, okay, you're going to stay locked down until there's a vaccine. As Bill Gates said, a magical vaccine. They're thinking that, the vaccine's going to do what we've been told vaccines do, which is to give everybody who gets one lifetime immunity and no, major health problems. What are the chances they're actually going to get a vaccine like that? I would say 0. Here's what I predict. I predict you're going to be seeing Bill Gates and Tony Fauci week after week dampening expectations about the vaccine. They were originally saying it's a magical vaccine we're going to give to everybody and everybody is going to get immune. And they're going to say, well, actually only 80% of people will get immune, and then they'll say 70%, and they'll say 50%, and then they'll say 20%, but it's still worth it to have 20%, and they'll try to sell us on that.
All right, breaking news. Pharmaceutical giant Pfizer just announced moments ago that its coronavirus vaccine is 95% effective.
Meg, we should point out that Pfizer shares are up by about 3% on this news. Obviously, more good news there.
91%.
90% efficacy rate. This is a a great vaccine.
Great day for humanity, great day for science, great day for the markets. Check this out, because it's got to be purchased, manufactured, and then there has to be money there for it to be purchased. And so the world needs to put up more money.
Their vaccine's efficacy against COVID dropped from 96% to 84%.
80% effective after just one dose.
Just a single dose.
A reduction of 75%.
Those lines go down.
Which fell below 50%.
You can't even keep up with this because it's moving so quickly.
42%.
30 to 40%.
Vaccine provides just 33% protection.
We know no vaccine lasts forever, so the protection starts to wane a bit, and that's what the boost is all about.
And then they're going to say, well, the vaccine, yeah, it's not actually lifetime immunity. Immunity only lasts for 1 year, one season, and actually maybe not even that, maybe only 2 or 3 months, and then you have to get another one.
It may not offer protection for a lifetime, right? It's not a one and done. Booster, so-called third dose, it is confusing to people.
It really is going to be about focusing on getting that shot just once a year. Much simpler, much easier to do.
Don't worry so much about the number of boosters. Worry about when you got your last booster.
Okay. Is the CEO of Moderna, Stefan Bancel. What a blowout quarter. Congratulations to you.
Oh yeah, we definitely think it's going to be like a flu shot. COVID is not going away.
Tuesday.
And that's why we're also working on combining flu and COVID, so it's easier.
You are the COVID.
The new updated COVID-19 vaccine is the most...
And that's my prediction. You know, and I could be wrong, but I would say 0. And all you have to do is look at the flu vaccine.
Well, thank you for illuminating all of this for us today. I want to leave on a positive note, but it's like, wow, we're screwed.
And that's the magic of this thing. But there's no doubt in the next 5 years, we can, we just need to mess around.
For those who still don't believe their government would experiment on the people, it's worth learning about the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, Operation Sea Spray, and the various depraved MK Ultra experiments. For those who know where to look, the list is endless. There's also the little known fact that the British government decided to randomly drop a nuclear bomb right next to 20,000 British soldiers, just to see what would happen. They don't teach you about this sick and vile experiment in the history books. Here at The People's Voice, we are determined to continue educating the masses, but we need your help to continue.
The Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
Led by one of the most powerful people on the planet, our leaders are discreetly transitioning us to another political system called stakeholder capitalism.
It's the funeral of shareholder capitalism and it's the birth of stakeholder capitalism.
You have shown us the way forward.
I'm a former TV producer and now the CEO of a tech startup who's rejected stakeholder capitalism after discovering what it is.
Like the Chinese state capitalism system, stakeholder capitalism places restrictions on the way we run our companies by forcing us to put the interests of a group of stakeholders first.
Soon, however, stakeholder capitalism will be mandatory for everyone.
We're announcing the UK's intention to mandate climate disclosures across the economy.
In this series, I discover how the stakeholders are propagating the transition.
It's a race against time to keep stakeholder capitalism on track.
By manipulating us to believe shareholder capitalism is making many of us oppressed.
Trans rights are human rights.
Reform is not possible.
Reform is not possible.
And fear climate change as an existential threat.
Shoot! Stop! Oil!
People are dying. Families are fleeing their homes.
After indoctrinating us to want another system, I learn how the stakeholders are propagating stakeholder capitalism as being better for people and planet.
This is the best time for leaders to come together, for the world to become more inclusive, more sustainable.
And how this strategy was successful for shifting China to communism.
But what's going on in our school and in our country is really a replay of the Cultural Revolution in China. The similarities are terrifying.
In this series,
we will end up with many more unemployed.
I expose the stakeholders' plan to accelerate the speed in which AI takes our jobs.
about 50% of people in the world will be affected,
leaving us dependent on them and vulnerable to tyranny.
A new useless class. People who are useless of the economic and political system.
And unless we act now, I learn how oppressed we become under stakeholder capitalism.
This means turfing people off their farms.
CBDCs would give officials a powerful tool of control and manipulation.
Banks can now freeze their personal accounts.
This technology can turn our communities literally into digital concentration camps.
Some people are yelling out, "We're starving."
Join me as I investigate the Great Reset transition to stakeholder capitalism.
History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems and supply chains will be deeply affected.
This is Klaus Schwab. He's the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, an exclusive organization for the world's most influential people.
Around 1/3 of the members are CEOs of multinational companies, 1/3 are leaders of international organizations and governments, and 1/3 are from civil society, forming a truly multi-stakeholder community.
His members include powerful heads of state, from Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak to the President of the People's Republic of China.
We are working closely together with governments from around the world, including all G20 countries.
This is a meeting of major world leaders who are deciding the future of the planet.
50 years ago, this German economist launched the World Economic Forum with a mission to transition the world to another political system called stakeholder capitalism.
In 1970, as a young professor at the University of Geneva, I pioneered the stakeholder concept, arguing that business should not serve only its shareholders, but all those who have a stake in the destiny of the company. As a consequence, I created the forum as a not-for-profit foundation.
Despite support from influential politicians and royals, Klaus Schwab has been unsuccessful in enacting stakeholder capitalism, but his network has since grown.
Over the last 50 years, I have further developed the stakeholder concept into a global business citizenship.
Klaus Schwab has now become one of the most powerful people on the planet, enabling him to finally fulfill his mission.
Today, the concept of stakeholder capitalism is finally becoming mainstream.
One of the world's most powerful people have recently, undemocratically, enacted a global transition to another socio-economic system.
We are talking about a substantial shift which is taking place to an economy which is more based on stakeholder responsibility.
But despite our governments and the media being partners of the World Economic Forum, nobody has informed us. So what is stakeholder capitalism? In his blog and book, Klaus Schwab describes it as a socio-economic system that he designed from two existing systems. The first being shareholder capitalism.
Commonly referred to as capitalism, shareholder capitalism provides us the freedom to trade with the interest of generating profit for our shareholders.
The second system is state capitalism.
Adopted by communist countries, state capitalism imposes restrictions on companies' freedom to trade by forcing them to put the government's interests first.
In his book entitled Stakeholder Capitalism, Klaus Schwab explains,
From a system of shareholder capitalism, which prevailed in the West in the past 50 years, and a system of state capitalism that gained prominence in Asia and is centered on the primacy of the state, we should move to a system of stakeholder capitalism.
While Klaus Schwab claims he designed stakeholder capitalism from both systems, it primarily shares characteristics of state capitalism.
Like the Chinese state capitalism system, stakeholder capitalism places restrictions on the way we run our companies by forcing us to put the interests of a group of stakeholders first.
Klaus Schwab has undemocratically enacted a global transition to an authoritarian political system.
It's a funeral of shareholder capitalism, and it's a birth of stakeholder capitalism.
You have shown us the way forward.
And he proudly shares which system inspired him.
On the one hand, we have state capitalism. On the other hand, we have shareholder capitalism. So it's a clash between two systems. I believe that state capitalism in the short term provides certain advantages.
Instead of the state taking control, stakeholder capitalism provides authority to a conglomerate of World Economic Forum elite members who call themselves stakeholders. These stakeholders run large organizations, defined by Klaus Schwab as
governments, NGOs, companies and international organizations such as the United Nations and the European Union.
If I look at our stakeholders, we have business, of course, then we have politics, we have partnerships with many governments around the world, we have NGOs, media, of course.
Stakeholder capitalism provides the World Economic Forum stakeholders and their executive chairman with an unprecedented amount of control. Yet Klaus Schwab alleges stakeholder capitalism benefits all people and the planet.
All these stakeholders crucially consist of people and make use of the planet. It is no surprise then that they should want to optimize the well-being of all of us as well as that of the environment.
Contrary to Klaus Schwab's claim, the world's most powerful elites do not represent our interests, and they appear to value Chinese governance.
The international community is looking to China to continue its responsible leadership.
The World Economic Forum have a large operation in China, where Klaus Schwab runs his ominous Global Future Council to
explore emerging models of Chinese leadership adapted to a new norm of globalization.
And Klaus Schwab is often interviewed by Chinese state media, where he expresses admiration for their communist system.
I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous over the last over 40 years. I think it's a role model for many countries. The Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
Klaus Schwab has also built a close rapport with the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party.
It is my distinct honor and great privilege to introduce His Excellency Xi Jinping. China has made significant economic and social achievements under your leadership.
In this World Economic Forum address, Klaus Schwab welcomes Xi Jinping as a stakeholder to govern us.
We should join hands and rise to the challenge. I believe this is the best time for leaders to come together and work jointly for the world to become more inclusive, more sustainable.
According to Klaus Schwab, stakeholder capitalism is essential for making the world more inclusive and sustainable.
Inclusive means an economy that empowers people who are allegedly oppressed, and sustainable means a ban on fossil fuels to supposedly address climate change.
These crises have been fabricated by Klaus Schwab so he can enact stakeholder capitalism, a system he alleges is more inclusive and sustainable, as a pre-planned solution.
The world which we want to create with the Great Reset, it will have to be more inclusive.
Inclusive propaganda was the primary weapon used by Mao for shifting China to communism over a 10-year period called the Cultural Revolution. Originating from a Marx and Engels idea, Mao indoctrinated young working-class Chinese to believe they were oppressed by the capitalists, encouraging them to rise up and overturn capitalism in favor of a system that he alleged was more inclusive.
You were 6 years old when the Cultural Revolution began in China.
I just want to let the American people know that what's going on in our school and in our country is really a replay of the Cultural Revolution in China.
Klaus Schwab and his stakeholders are disseminating Marxist inclusive propaganda to encourage us to rise up and demand a shift to stakeholder capitalism.
Reform is not possible. Reform is not possible. We need to defund. We need to defund.
I want people to see there's similarities, and the similarities are terrifying.
Instead of targeting the working class, Klaus Schwab and his stakeholders are indoctrinating our younger generation to believe minority groups across race, sexuality and gender are oppressed by our capitalist system.
I feel guilty that I've not done anything vocally to help the people who are oppressed, and they've been oppressed for so long.
My youngest looks very white, so they would look at her and say, "You are an oppressor."
Marxist ideas such as critical race theory and gender identity are being propagated throughout education institutions.
Books like these are now part of the curriculum,
encouraging young people to join social justice movements that are designed to drive a shift to a system that Klaus Schwab alleges is more inclusive.
This one is A is for activist. Each letter promotes a different form of protest. N is for no, 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 no.
We have power! We have power!
Make some noise if you think that trans rights are human rights.
We have seen the signs of anger on the streets, so we have to create a stronger inclusiveness.
In the next episode about propaganda, I investigate how Klaus Schwab's personally trained activists and self-acclaimed Marxists who founded Black Lives Matter have been fueling
growing national unrest.
And I explore the stakeholders' gender identity policies that are indoctrinating us to believe we can be born into the wrong body.
I'm sure there are still people who are skeptical about this transformation.
They have to trust that the era will be inclusive for them.
While we need to do better to address all forms of discrimination, Marxist ideas lead to extreme oppression.
And finally, more sustainable, because the next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner, and it is the climate crisis.
By indoctrinating us to fear climate change, Klaus Schwab's sustainable propaganda is also making us want stakeholder capitalism.
No! Stop it!
Climate activists glued their hands to sports cars.
I got kids to feed!
We demand at this year's World Economic Forum immediately and completely divest from fossil fuels. We want this done now.
His poster child and fearmonger for his climate change propaganda is Greta Thunberg.
We are less than 12 years away from not being able to undo our mistakes.
And Klaus Schwab's solution to the alleged climate crisis.
It's the decarbonization of the economy to protect us against let's say, an environmental virus.
The decarbonisation of the economy is Klaus Schwab's net zero policy.
We must accelerate its transition to net zero,
which means banning everything that emits carbon.
The main solution is so simple that even a small child can understand it. We have to stop the emissions of greenhouse gases.
This includes our use of diesel and petrol vehicles, as well as travelling by plane.
We must change almost everything in our current societies.
Currently being enforced by Klaus Schwab's politician stakeholders, net zero removes our freedom to travel and imposes Orwellian restrictions on our lives.
It was all very jolly, laughing along as the police held Greta for the photographers.
If the police arrest someone for protesting, they don't typically stop for photos, unless it's a propaganda stunt.
They all got the shots they wanted before the police then walked her away. It's theatre, climate theatre.
I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day.
Sustainable propaganda is designed to make us fear climate change, so we actively demand a ban on fossil fuels.
Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and people?
And it's working. Many of us are going to extreme lengths to demand Orwellian restrictions on our freedom to travel.
Menschen frieren. Menschen sterben. Wir sind in einer Klimakatastrophe.
Private jet emissions quadruple for a week each year due to the stakeholders flying to the World Economic Forum's headquarters in Davos to set climate change policies, emitting as much CO2 as 350,000 average cars.
You seem to be joining the establishment, not fighting them anymore. Are you not one of them?
One of who?
What, the people in the private jets and the helicopters flying in here to tell us how to live our lives? The point being, you have to condemn all of them equally, otherwise it's hypocrisy, right?
While our freedom erodes, the stakeholders reserve unrestricted freedom to travel in their private jets by purchasing carbon credits, which they claim offsets their carbon emissions.
A more sustainable way of doing business that values all stakeholders.
We must forget about net zero. We need real zero.
While we need to look after our planet, net zero is a propaganda campaign to justify the totalitarian restrictions Klaus Schwab is imposing under stakeholder capitalism. In the next episode, I investigate the climate change science.
This is from NASA satellite data. Temperature has gone down.
And the stakeholders' sustainable propaganda.
At no point during the past 800,000 years has atmospheric CO2 been as high as it is today.
The reason you chose 800,000 years ago is because for 200 million years before that, it was greater than it is today.
Yeah, but there weren't human beings.
So how did it get to 2,000 parts per million if we humans weren't here? Your testimony is not serious.
Throughout history, tyrants have weaponized anger and fear to manipulate good citizens into committing humanity's worst human rights atrocities.
We're angry, we're mad, we're hurt. So that fear is going to motivate us.
I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16.
People are dying. Children are starving. Families are fleeing their homes.
Similar anger and fear propaganda is being disseminated by the stakeholders today, making us want another system that's allegedly more inclusive and sustainable.
What we're seeing now through the language of the World Economic Forum, this concept of stakeholder capitalism, which really is just communism in drag.
Discreetly being enacted by our ruling elites, stakeholder capitalism is global communism, rebranded with a catchy slogan to make it appear better for people and planet.
Welcome to Stakeholder Capitalism, a show by the World Economic Forum exploring how economies can be made to work for progress, people, and the planet.
The stakeholder concept, and particularly the ESGs, are a very important part of getting business involved.
To force us to adopt stakeholder capitalism and make it appear more inclusive and sustainable, Klaus Schwab has launched a corporate credit score called ESG. E stands for environment.
In this section, we receive a good score for complying with Klaus Schwab's climate change restrictions.
S stands for social.
Here, our score improves for complying with Klaus Schwab's inclusive policies, requiring us to employ more allegedly oppressed people and support social justice movements.
And G stands for corporate governance.
This means the corporation stakeholders who govern us.
You have been a fabulous partner in promoting the stakeholder concept. What you did is actually to speak out on social issues. Your support for LGBTQ rights.
In order to receive a good score, more brands are hiring ambassadors from the trans community.
This month I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too.
And the stakeholders are supporting other inclusive policies.
Starbucks says employees will now be allowed to wear Black Lives Matter apparel as part of its dress code, and now they're even making t-shirts for them to wear.
If we do not comply to Klaus Schwab's Marxist policies, a subsequent poor ESG score will mean no more funding. the CEO of the largest money management firm in the world and considered the most powerful person on Wall Street, Larry Fink, is a World Economic Forum board trustee. BlackRock focused their investments in companies with good ESG scores.
At BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
That's an investment criteria for you.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race, you're going to be impacted, and we're going to have to force change.
By starving non-compliant companies of funding, investor stakeholders, such as BlackRock, are forcing companies to adopt stakeholder capitalism.
This will allow investors to see how the company performs on matters such as climate change, workplace diversity and inclusion, and as a consequence, a sea change in the way companies are run.
One elite who rejected his invite to the World Economic Forum and is sounding the alarm about ESG is Elon Musk.
We don't want basically some sort of communism rebranded thing, which is like a lot of what ESG is, to be inflicted upon corporate America without the knowledge of the actual shareholders, which is what's going on. The public is being lied to.
Elon Musk tweeted, "I'm increasingly convinced that corporate ESG is the devil incarnate. People who follow the Great Reset and the World Economic Forums often warn against it."
Elon also tweeted,
WEF is increasingly becoming an unelected world government that the people never asked for and don't want.
And
how is WEF Davos even a thing? Are they trying to be the boss of Earth?
criticising our new boss of Earth will guarantee a poor ESG score.
Tesla, a company that makes electric vehicles, has a moderate to moderately poor score. Somehow, out of the 5 US-based automotive companies like Ford, which make gas-guzzling trucks, Tesla's ESG score is the worst. Why is that? The score is political.
What I'm particularly proud of in the case of the development of those ESG metrics is that the initiative came from business, from our 100+ CEOs.
And his 100+ CEOs will of course be guaranteed a good score.
So the company reigning at the very top of the ESG scoring list is Bill Gates founded Microsoft.
With this metrics, the business world will finally be able to walk the talk on their commitment to ESG performance and the stakeholder principle.
Recently, I rejected a request from my investors to report ESG metrics for my startup. But according to Klaus Schwab, I may soon have no choice.
As regulators look set to mandate separate sustainability reporting requirements, we encourage all companies to join the Forum's Stakeholder Capitalism Metrics Initiative.
This mandate call to action is led by this middle stakeholder, the UK Prime Minister.
We're announcing the UK's intention to mandate climate disclosures by large companies and financial services firms across the economy by 2025.
By the end of 2023, the UK and several other countries had mandated large company environmental reporting. And the UK, EU and Australia have announced reporting could be made mandatory for all companies in 2024. With China as the model, ESG will likely evolve from scoring companies to scoring everyone, just like their social credit score.
The state will go over every detail of a person's life with a fine-tooth comb, their financial situation, spending habits, career, even behaviour on social media. Criticising the government online is a no-no.
As with the ESG score, the Chinese social credit system forces compliance by punishing people who break the government's rules.
When Xiaowen Wang makes an electronic payment, her purchases tell the state a lot about her. Buying cigarettes would count against her. She'd be better off buying water. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
In a country that's banned over 20 million people from travelling for having a low score, you don't want to disrespect the government.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
And it's not just our human rights we should be concerned about. Since 1900, communist governments have killed 100 million citizens, with many of those victims being in China over the past century.
Between 1960 and 1962, 30 million people died from starvation during the so-called Great Leap Forward. During China's 10-year shift to communism from 1966, Mao indoctrinated the young working class to rise up and attack anyone who favoured capitalism, resulting in millions murdered. In 1989, thousands of human rights protesters were massacred by tanks and heavily armed troops in Tiananmen Square. Today, Xi Jinping is leading an Orwellian campaign of control and intimidation, using the media to brainwash citizens.
Journalists are being arrested and newspapers forced to censor or close down.
Due to the Marxist ideology opposing all forms of religion, over 1 million Uyghurs and other Chinese Muslims are currently being tortured and often killed in re-education camps, designed to erase religion throughout China.
Lessons are watched over by police, carrying shields, batons and handcuffs, and the documents describe the response to students who attempt to escape. If warning shots are ignored, the order's clear: shoot them dead.
Zhang, the whistleblower cop, says he got double his normal salary.
Were the suspects all men?
Men and women. Kick them, beat them bruised and swollen, knock their heads on the radiator. Police would step on the suspect's face and tell him to confess.
Tie him up and trample his arm, shackle their hands, pour cold water, put a water pipe into his mouth and tie him up.
He was raped by Chinese prisoners who followed the orders of prison guards.
The police there ordered me to take off my underwear and let me
bend over.
So I cried. Please don't do this.
It's normal that some people die. That's just how you get used to saying it.
Where was your niece held?
The same detention facility I stayed. I don't know how she died.
If you want people to confess, you use the electric baton. We would tie 2 electrical wires on the tips and set the wires on their genitals.
For many Chinese prisoners of conscience, torture and the risk of being murdered is more preferable than the punishment for confessing to the crime of having a religious belief.
Just for growing a beard, Tursun Kadir was sentenced to 16 years in jail. Many others have been jailed for listening to illegal religious lectures, including Tursun Memtimin and Ashigul Turgan. The documents don't say whether their daughters have been sent, like so many others, to the state-run boarding schools built alongside the camps.
He insists he can forgive the men who jailed and tortured him.
I don't hate them, because all of them victim of that system.
Modelled upon that system, Klaus Schwab has enacted a global transition to stakeholder capitalism.
Today is a milestone in implementing the stakeholder principle into the management of companies.
A system that provides the stakeholders with a terrifying amount of control.
It's a burst of taking care of all the different stakeholders.
You need to commit to stakeholder capitalism. You need to commit to being net zero.
By starving us of funding and mandating ESG, Klaus Schwab is forcing us to adopt stakeholder capitalism. Since he launched the World Economic Forum 50 years ago, Klaus Schwab has vowed to enact stakeholder capitalism. What, therefore, makes this decade different?
Artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others. The fourth industrial revolution has become a reality.
In 2017, Klaus Schwab published this book.
And with my book, I coined the notion of the fourth industrial revolution,
describing how the economy will become disrupted by artificial intelligence.
It's coming like a tsunami. It will be overwhelming to see how fast the change will happen in an exponential speed, like the Internet of Things, of course drones, robots, artificial intelligence. This technological revolution changes how we consume, how we produce, how we organize our supply chain. It changes us. Just think of sensors planted into our brains.
And the reason why Klaus Schwab is excited? AI is about to take our jobs.
I'm convinced that we will destroy, unfortunately, a lot of employment. Just think of self-guided cars and all the drivers losing their jobs.
Steering wheel's moving, seatbelt's fastened, no one's behind the wheel.
Imagine a huge Amazon blimp floating in the sky that can send delivery drones out all across the city.
Our life in 10 years from now will be completely different, and who masters those technologies will be the master of the world.
When AI takes our jobs, our wealth will shift to the stakeholders who own the machines, making us desperate, dependent, and more vulnerable to tyranny.
Here is the line.
This will make Klaus Schwab significantly more powerful.
This is you're not very worried, this is you're very worried.
But to camera, he acts worried.
You're really worried?
I'm really worried because we have the congruence of so many challenges at the same time.
And smugly, he explains how bad it will get for us.
That's serious.
Yeah, it's serious.
Every past industrial revolution, such as the third, which was brought on by the invention of the internet, resulted in jobs being lost, but more new jobs were created. The fourth industrial revolution, however, marks a pivotal time in our evolution, when AI takes our jobs, and the number of human jobs will reduce as the technology continues to advance. Subsequently, most of our wealth will shift to the stakeholders, who own the machines.
If you take the fourth industrial revolution, it will have a tendency to increase even the gap and to foster social exclusion.
This transfer of wealth ends badly for us.
So what we see is an erosion of the lower middle class.
In fact, this erosion of wealth will affect most of us, and it began happening exponentially in 2020, when his politician stakeholders strategically closed their businesses.
Non-essential businesses in New Zealand must now close.
Workers who are finding that their jobs are under threat or going through no fault of their own.
Small businesses feel they're being targeted unfairly.
To shut down small businesses while allowing those same products to be sold at Costco and Walmart makes no sense at all.
The digital industry will go out of this crisis strengthened, but we know that many industries which rely particularly on physical interaction will have difficulties to survive.
When the politician stakeholders forced us to close our businesses, the market value of their largest tech companies almost doubled, while more than 160 million of us were pushed into poverty.
A recently released report by Oxfam says that 2/3 of all wealth earned since 2020 was earned by the world's richest 1%.
Oxfam, right?
As billionaires gather in Davos in person for the first time in over 2 years, they have a lot to celebrate. During the COVID-19 pandemic, their mountain of wealth has reached unprecedented and dizzying heights, at the same time as the soaring cost of living is hurting so many worldwide.
As they were benefiting from the lockdowns, the stakeholders discreetly published the Future of Jobs report, declaring 50% of our jobs will be lost to AI as early as 2025.
The COVID-19 pandemic-induced lockdowns and related global recession of 2020 have created a highly uncertain outlook for the labour market and accelerated the arrival of the future of work. By 2025, 85 million jobs may be displaced.
And alarmingly,
50% of all employees will need reskilling.
There is no evidence enough new human jobs will be created to manage the machines that take our jobs. Therefore, using reskilling instead of jobs lost is misleading at best. Klaus Schwab also announces our imminent jobs crisis ambiguously.
The unemployment and the impact on livelihoods, about 50% of people in the world will be affected, taking the combined effects of COVID-19 and the fourth industrial revolution.
According to the report, job disruption is being accelerated by the politician stakeholders closing our businesses during the pandemic. It also explains
there is an ever larger need for a great reset.
We will end up with many more unemployed. We have to prepare for a more angry world. I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
Merely 4 months after COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, Klaus Schwab published this book, COVID-19, The Great Reset.
His book proposes a broad array of changes to our political, societal and economic systems, as well as an increase in government control.
While we were locked down, Klaus Schwab also launched his ambiguous The Great Reset initiative, which we discover is to transition the world to stakeholder capitalism.
The World Economic Forum is now very much engaged into this initiative of shaping a great reset.
Throughout all the Great Reset's ambiguous content, such as this promotional video, Klaus Schwab makes no connection to our imminent jobs crisis or stakeholder capitalism, until he launched a private summit called the Jobs Reset.
Welcome back to the Great Reset on day one of the Jobs Reset Summit, which is being held as COVID-19 is not only wiping out jobs, but also changing the way millions of us work.
And the World Economic Forum's managing director declared our jobs crisis on the Great Reset podcast.
World Economic Forum Managing Director Sadia Zahidi.
In the last few years, I think we've seen the growing threat of technology to jobs. By 2025, humans and machines will be at par in terms of how those tasks are being divided. About half of their employees will need reskilling. In every single job, there is the expectation that at least 40% of the core skills in that job are going to change. Now, that is a massive number for most of us to absorb. It basically means that roughly half of what we're doing is going to look different in terms of the tasks that we do day to day.
I'm delighted to welcome you to the Great Reset Dialogue on harnessing the fourth industrial revolution.
In this discussion, the host asked whether the Great Reset has anything to do with jobs.
The big fear people have about the fourth industrial revolution relating to their jobs, their concern is that there will be casualties of this revolution, and that the idea of a reset is really about resetting them out of the workforce and replacing them with robots.
And this stakeholder, the CEO of Black & Decker, replied,
"The fourth industrial revolution had been slowly wending its way into global supply chains during the 4 years since Klaus Schwab published his work. And then the Great Reset came along. COVID-19 struck. All of a sudden, the digital revolution accelerated. And it's clear that countries, industries, companies, and people with the requisite resources and skills, they will emerge as the big winners, and the gaps will only widen for those that are under-resourced or under-skilled."
Initiating the Great Reset, the stakeholders closed our businesses to accelerate our transition to a jobless economy, as explained by the president of the World Economic Forum.
Studies show that in the early days of the pandemic, the world leaped ahead 5 years in terms of digital uptake, accelerated these technologies only in 2 months.
And demonstrated by the growing number of us who have become homeless.
The number one reason why people lost their home is because they lost their job. Dr. Margot Kuchel at the University of San Francisco conducted one of the most comprehensive studies on homelessness in nearly 30 years.
So what they told us is they literally had no way out. They had no transportation, no phone, they had no money. They really were stuck.
As our wealth shifts to the stakeholders, growing poverty will make us vulnerable to tyranny, providing Klaus Schwab the power to enforce stakeholder capitalism.
It's very clear that the devastation from the pandemic could be felt far and wide in terms of livelihoods, in terms of people losing their jobs.
It's now a historical moment, a crucial moment to rebuild the future, to reset our policies.
But just how vulnerable do we become?
Capitalism, as we have known it, is dead.
Let's explore what happens to our economy when AI takes our jobs.
Each of our necessities has a supply chain. Take food. Someone grows it, someone packages it, someone distributes it, someone retails it, and someone delivers it. At each step, people are paid for their contribution towards getting it to our dinner tables, and our salaries are spent back in the supply chains on various goods and services to ensure we get everything we need. Money rotates to create a healthy economy. This system, that we call capitalism, incentivizes us to work across the supply chains, enabling us all to have everything we need for living within a civilized society. In the fourth industrial revolution, however, our jobs increasingly become replaced by AI, leading to most of us losing our salaries. All the money that would have gone into our pockets will shift to the elites, who own the machines, causing the wealth gap to widen at an exponential pace. With less money moving around the economy and our companies finding it harder to compete, more businesses will begin to make redundancies, thus exacerbating the problem. This compound effect will cause the economy to shrink until it finally collapses.
And that's not the worst part.
In most countries, we have benefit or welfare systems to provide people who are unable to work with a financial safety net. These benefit or welfare pots of money are financed by the tax that's paid by people who work. But when fewer people work, less tax is paid, and the benefit and welfare pots shrink. Consequently, there's not enough money to support the growing number of unemployed. This results in a relatively small number of companies owning most of the wealth, and much of the population experiencing third world levels of poverty.
As far as I can see, our economy will crash when AI takes most of our jobs, forcing us naturally to rethink our economic systems. Klaus Schwab figured this out and devised a plan to accelerate our transition to the fourth industrial revolution, a jobless economy with widespread poverty, empowering him to accomplish a mission he's worked towards his entire life.
The message from 2020 should be abundantly clear.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead.
What is at the forefront is to create a new model, a new concept, a new definition of capitalism.
Often, Klaus Schwab and his stakeholders promote the Great Reset transition to stakeholder capitalism subtly.
The Great Reset Initiative has a set of dimensions to build a new social contract.
Now it's time for our generation to define a new social contract.
And sometimes
we must reinvent capitalism.
They're more direct.
Every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism.
We are grateful for your leadership on stakeholder responsibility in accelerating the transition.
But this long-standing stakeholder, King Charles of the United Kingdom, has a different approach.
In order to secure our future and to prosper, we need to evolve our economic model.
At the World Economic Forum's 50th anniversary in 2020, Charles spoke vaguely,
helping to transition our existing systems
and repetitively,
and accelerate our transition,
about a transition in our economy.
It is my greatest possible hope that you will join me this year in accelerating the transition to sustainable markets.
Instead of stating the transition is to stakeholder capitalism,
transition to sustainable markets and a net zero economy.
Charles explains the transition is to a net zero economy.
Transition pathways to decarbonize and move to net zero.
As the royals mustn't engage in politics, Charles speaks cryptically, using stakeholder capitalism slogan instead.
People and planet.
On 3 separate occasions.
People and planet.
The King shows support for ESG.
An increasing number of corporations are adopting ESG methodologies.
And making it mandatory.
There are now growing calls from financial institutions and companies alike to make disclosure mandatory.
After dishonourably and treacherously promoting the Great Reset transition to stakeholder capitalism on stage, his speech was made into another ambiguous promotional video entitled The Great Reset.
And the time to act is now. Thank you, President.
Charles explains,
inspired by the Great Reset's call to action, I called for a Marshall-like plan for nature, people and the planet.
He wants to
reset the ways in which we live.
The King is one of many powerful stakeholders colluding in the Great Reset transition to stakeholder capitalism. Other stakeholders include the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund.
History would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
The Secretary General of the United Nations.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
Some prime ministers.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
And the disruption is an opportunity for us to reset.
And their resident climate change propagandist.
This is a time for a great reset.
Modelled on China's decade-long shift to communism, the Great Reset is the name of our 10-year transition to stakeholder capitalism.
It's a time frame repeated throughout the Great Reset's initiatives.
Britain to impose petrol car ban by 2030.
As explained by Klaus Schwab.
A social contract to transform our world by 2030.
And confirmed by the King himself.
With 2020 being seen as the super year, kickstarting a decade of action for people and planet.
With our decade of action for people and planet, as Charles puts it, becoming achieved by 2030, we're over 1/3 of our transition to full stakeholder capitalism.
By ordering us to close our businesses, the stakeholders created a recession that's accelerating the speed in which machines take our jobs and our wealth shifts to them.
After 50 disappointing years of supporting Klaus Schwab's vision of transitioning the world to stakeholder capitalism, the Great Reset now provides Charles some hope.
Nearly 50 years of trying to champion this cause, I cannot help feeling that finally we are ready to change our trajectory.
And after 50 years of failing, Klaus Schwab's lifelong vision is finally coming to fruition.
I imagine the conversations back then, in the context of the 70s and the 80s, were freer markets, trade, liberalisation. I assume that was your agenda.
From the beginning on, this was very much devoted to social and, I should say, environmental issues.
Today, the fourth industrial revolution provides this tyrant an opportunity to inflict tyranny that's more extreme than any past fascist regime.
If you know enough biology and you have enough computing power and data, you can know my personality type, my political views, my sexual preferences, my mental weaknesses, my deepest fears and hopes. And you can do that not just to me, but to everyone. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
The stakeholders will have the advantage of weaponizing artificial intelligence to enforce compliance.
Today, the newest bot in blue was sent out to its first crime scene. Meet DigiDog, the newest member of the NYPD's Technical Assistance Response Unit.
There are an estimated more than 300 million surveillance cameras in China.
Many of the surveillance cameras in use in China now are equipped with facial recognition, which simply gives the authorities the ability to track who specifically has gone to which precise location.
In some early indoctrination centres, neurosensors are fitted into headbands to measure the children's level of concentration.
This 5th grader, whom we caught dozing off in class, told us his parents punish him for low attention scores. Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students yawn during classes. The government has poured billions of dollars into the project.
COVID become an opportunity to harness technology for inflicting cruelty, keeping the Chinese population locked down for nearly 3 years.
This community is in total lockdown now. Stay in your room. Do not open the window and sing. Control your soul's desire for freedom.
Some citizens in the authoritarian nation are losing it, defying the lockdown by screaming from their apartment windows into the night. It's straight out of a dystopian sci-fi movie. Some people are yelling out, "We're starving."
To explain the consequence of AI being weaponized against us, Klaus Schwab invited his philosopher stakeholder to the stage.
If this power falls into the hands of a 21st century Stalin, the result will be the worst totalitarian regime in human history, and we already have a number of applicants for the job of 21st century Stalin.
Klaus Schwab. He's hailed as a harmless hero, but is more like a dangerous dictator of our jobless new world.
To build back better, we must reinvent capitalism.
In 2020, the World Economic Forum released a slogan for the Great Reset.
So that's what this summit is all about. It's leveraging this crisis and build back better.
This is only the beginning of how we think about building back better.
A true recovery from COVID-19 will not be about putting things back together the way they were. We need to build back better, to reset. Building back better is about much more than corporate social responsibility. It's about reinventing capitalism itself.
Klaus Schwab designed the Build Back Better slogan to encourage us to support the Great Reset, an evil plan to acquire most of our wealth and leave us at their mercy.
From Hollywood to Venice Beach, scenes from what could be a disaster movie. Officials here last counted more than 66,000 experiencing homelessness in January 2020. But that was before the pandemic struck, and hundreds of thousands of Angelenos lost their jobs. Since then, our partners on NBC LA's investigative team have captured these images, showing a situation spiraling out of control. Tents taking over intersections, stretches of the iconic Venice boardwalk now resembling a refugee camp. It's a reality no one is comfortable with.
This is my home.
I just can't understand how a country would allow people to live like this.
As more tents go up every day.
You may have heard about the Great Reset. Well, that's the agenda of the global elites who want to remake capitalism in their image. Now, the advocates for the Great Reset use phrases like build back better. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear political leaders all over the world parrot that mantra. It's hardly a coincidence.
When leaders of the free world, who are supposed to represent the interests of their citizens, publicly collude in the Great Reset of capitalism, the vast extent of the corruption becomes blindingly obvious.
We're gonna build back better our democracy and restore humanity. We're gonna
build back better.
Building back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Build it back better.
Building this country back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
Many governments, such as the US, the UK and Canada, have enacted Klaus Schwab's Build Back Better inclusive and sustainable propaganda policies, hoodwinking us into believing our future is prosperous.
It looks as though COVID has massively accelerated changes in the world of work, and as old jobs are lost and new jobs are created, this government will build back better.
And the first plank of my Build Back Better plan rejects the defeatist view that automation and globalization mean we can assure American workers lead to a future made in America.
because we can only build back better if we lean on one another. So thank you to all of our entrepreneurs across the country for everything you do for our communities.
When I say climate change, what do you think of? I think of jobs. Green jobs. Green jobs. Build back better.
Hi, we all want to work together on building back better from the pandemic, a slogan that I think that Joe has used several times. I think he may have nicked it from us, but I certainly nicked it from somewhere else. I think probably some UN disaster relief program. But we want to build back better from the pandemic.
In 2020, the World Economic Forum explained,
The Great Reset of capitalism will only work if it includes everyone, but almost half of the world's population has no access to the internet.
Unless we rapidly tackle the challenge to bring high-quality, universal internet access to all, we will not be able to build inclusive economies or achieve our sustainable development goals.
In 2021, G7 leaders launched the Build Back Better World Initiative, using our money to accelerate all developing countries' transition to the fourth industrial revolution by providing the fast internet they require.
By mobilizing trillions of dollars of investment capital that's sitting on the sidelines, there is an urgent need for infrastructure development.
While we lose our homes, the stakeholders are spending taxpayers' money on building the infrastructure required to enslave everyone on the planet.
It's your world which we are discussing here, and to integrate you into this Great Reset initiative is absolutely essential.
There are some people who claim we are now in a deglobalizing world, but actually, I would say we have to re-globalize this world.
How did someone with an ambition to transition the entire world to a Chinese communist system get all governments and influential organizations to carry out his plan?
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Since he founded the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab has been targeting ambitious young professionals and educating them within his Young Global Leaders program to become ambassadors for stakeholder capitalism. By harnessing his powerful network throughout the deep state, Klaus Schwab then places them into positions of power. He explains,
We integrate YGLs into processes that allow them to have a real impact on global affairs.
One YGL Klaus Schwab is particularly proud of is the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
He was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China. Their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green as fast as we need to start investing in solar.
What we are very proud of now is the young generation like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, is that we penetrate the cabinets.
Once he penetrates the cabinets, Klaus Schwab's young global leaders are required to
inform and influence decision-making and mobilize transformation,
with an unsurprising mission
to shape a more inclusive and sustainable future.
So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet or even more are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. And it's true in France now. I'm here with the president.
Here are the heads of all G20 countries propagating the stakeholder capitalism slogan at their 2021 annual meeting.
Recent years, you've had Vladimir Putin, you've had Xi Jinping, President of France, the Chancellor of Germany, leaders from all over the world. To get these leaders, do you have to call them and say you're personally invited?
No, usually the presence is the result of longer friendship in certain cases. For example, Mrs. Merkel. There was a young member from Eastern Germany appointed to the cabinet as environmental minister, and we made her a young global leader. And I could go on and on.
And his young global leaders are dominating other sectors. As Klaus Schwab explains,
they are CEOs of Fortune 500 corporations, in royal houses, in leading NGOs and national non-profits, public figures in civil society, sports personalities, and more.
Here are some young global leaders who are executives at
Virgin, Dell, Microsoft, Blackstone, JP Morgan, General Electric, Reuters, EMI Music, Ben & Jerry's, Ford, Siemens, Puma, Motorola, Yahoo, Sony Pictures, Amazon, Hyundai, Avon, Estee Lauder, Barclays, Lehman Brothers, Hewlett-Packard, eBay, Goldman Sachs, McDonald's, Alibaba, Google, Nestle, Viacom, Salesforce, Skype, Nokia, Avis, Expedia, McKinsey, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook and Meta, OpenAI, BlackRock, Pfizer, Wikipedia, Black Lives Matter, PayPal, Uber Eats, and more.
After indoctrinating CEOs and ambitious young politicians, Klaus Schwab has captured most governmental, non-governmental, and Fortune 500 organizations. So why are you hearing all of this from me and not mainstream news? It's because most media companies are owned or run by a World Economic Forum stakeholder and are disseminating propaganda. In the US...
Hello everyone, I'm Karen Cho, co-anchor on CNBC.
This is CNBC promoting stakeholder capitalism at the World Economic Forum.
It feels as though it's a race against time to keep stakeholder capitalism on track in 2023.
This World Economic Forum stakeholder, Tim Davie, is the Director General of the BBC. He explains,
the BBC is principally funded through the licence fee paid by UK households.
Digging deeper, the BBC is largely funded by a conglomerate of World Economic Forum stakeholders, from the UN and EU to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Donors also include foreign governments, the World Health Organization, and partners such as Facebook.
They donate valuable, unrestricted income.
This funding evidently buys the stakeholders considerable influence.
We can tailor the partnership towards delivering on key environmental, social and governance, ESG.
The BBC also promotes stakeholder capitalism on their website. Unsurprisingly, the UK media and online regulator, Ofcom, is also a World Economic Forum partner, and their chief executive, stakeholder Melanie Dawes, is driving a World Economic Forum censorship initiative, which has led to the UK Online Safety Act.
The internet as we know it faces a very real threat, said Proton CEO Andy Yen, who says the bills give the government the power to access people's private messages.
This recently enacted law is particularly a concern for platform owners like myself, who investigate the stakeholders' corruption, as the BBC explained.
Breaking the rules could result in fines of up to 10% of global revenue for tech companies, or £18 million, whichever is bigger. Their bosses could also potentially face prison time as a punishment.
Incarceration of publishers of information they disagree with. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised, because Julian Assange, a publisher of information they don't like, is already incarcerated.
More frightening, governments around the globe are discreetly passing laws that grant another World Economic Forum partner, the World Health Organization, and the Director General totalitarian control upon declaring their next health emergency.
You'll have the power to shut down any business. It takes away all the protections that being in a democracy offers.
In the next episode, I investigate how this zero draft treaty has all the hallmarks of stakeholder capitalism.
It said under the WHO's own figures, 60% came from 276 stakeholders. So it's clear there's a strong external influence on the policy of the WHO.
And I investigate the new online safety laws that are currently being enacted around the globe. Despite these terrifying examples of how Klaus Schwab is controlling the media and stripping us of our sovereignty, most of us won't believe it's really happening.
We have all been subjected to the most powerful, coordinated, globally harmonized, military-grade propaganda campaign in the history of the Western world.
Over the past few years, we have been indoctrinated to believe a false narrative that has been scripted by the stakeholders and propagated by the media. Whenever someone like myself promotes a counter-narrative, we have been conditioned to automatically dismiss it as a dangerous right-wing conspiracy theory.
By definition, these are highly refined psychological warfare tools that were deployed on the entire population.
After watching irrefutable evidence of our ruling elite transitioning us undemocratically to an authoritarian system, which of these three options describes how you feel?
I'm concerned about our human rights. Something suspicious is happening. It's a dangerous conspiracy theory.
If you are anything but extremely concerned about our human rights and future, Klaus Schwab and his stakeholders have changed the way you think.
We need to address this issue of changing our mindset.
Indoctrination is caused by the repetition of information. Once we believe something, there is no evidence that can persuade us otherwise. Those of us who lean towards the indoctrinated end of this scale cannot accept our ruling elites are colluding in the great reset of capitalism.
That's, what is it? I can't remember what their word is, but it's something communism. It's communism, that is.
This is the Mayor of Glastonbury Town in the UK. With stakeholder capitalism set to transform businesses and the lives of everyone in her community, I invited Indra and her 15 councillors to watch this documentary with me. Only 4 councillors bothered to show up, and this was the Mayor's reaction after she saw it.
You've put a few things together that don't go together. You have not done any critical thinking.
But that's exactly what I've
done. No, you haven't.
Critical thinking is questioning the official narrative, rather than just believing it.
Right now I'm too angry, because that is not good, okay? What you've put up there is dangerous nonsense. You are inciting people to something that is not real. That is not going to happen. It's not a thing. AI is not a thing, okay?
It doesn't matter how much evidence this film presents, an indoctrinated person cannot accept it's happening.
I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't.
But it's happening. You've heard the world elite saying it's happening. I have been asked to do ESG. Stakeholder capitalism has now been enacted around the world.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
So why is it not happening for you?
Why is it not happening
You
for
said
me?
it's not happening.
The whole China thing, that is racist nonsense. That is never going to happen, okay?
I'm not the first concerned person to approach Glastonbury Council. In March 2023, over 100 residents attended their council hearing to voice concerns about the Great Reset of capitalism.
A group came to the council, a mob really, and she was going on about net zero and how it's against our freedoms. Freedom to drive and freedom to fly were one of the human rights that they were citing. This is my therapy bit. Yeah.
Indra is a good person. She is just unable to accept the evidence presented.
You're heavily indoctrinated.
Oh, great. I would say you are a little bit twisted.
And this level of indoctrination will make it impossible for her to protect the human rights of her constituents.
What you're doing is dangerous nonsense, and you know it.
The stakeholders' propaganda is so sophisticated, they have manipulated us to believe exposing their corruption is dangerous. But who precisely is it dangerous for? Sharing evidence of the stakeholders colluding in the Great Reset of capitalism is only dangerous for them.
This is your future. If you've got any children, this is their future too.
To regain control of our governments, we can work from the bottom up by ensuring our local councils are not indoctrinated by the one thing that really is dangerous: the far left ideology.
People need you to be able to step up and fight for them.
Do what?
Well, first of all, not run away and tell everyone that it's all rubbish. It's happening. We are transitioning to stakeholder capitalism.
Communism thrives by indoctrinating us to believe the restrictions are for our safety and to improve society. This is how the Chinese feel about their social credit system.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
It forces us to be well behaved.
This is how the Chinese feel about publicly shaming fellow citizens who report government corruption.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
And this is how the Chinese feel about their government monitoring their children's brains.
We spoke to parents who were unclear about where the data ended up, and they didn't seem to care too much.
Over the past few years, we've also been indoctrinated to believe the lockdowns, mandates, exclusions, cancels, and censors are all for our safety.
Some fear we're already witnessing worst-case scenarios.
With their climate change propaganda now in full swing,
we must just stop oil!
We are moving towards a world with Orwellian restrictions on our freedom to travel, one that benefits the stakeholders who own the machines.
You will use an app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but automatically guided car, a self-driven car. I had a discussion with the mayor of Los Angeles, who told me in 2030 Los Angeles will be private car-driven free. And this will allow to transform highways into parks and other public spheres. Or another bet which I would make with you.
The further we transition to stakeholder capitalism, and the more indoctrinated we become, the harder it will be to restore democracy.
The very nature of work will change.
Our generation is going to have to deal with tens of millions of jobs replaced by automation like self-driving cars and trucks.
In this series, I investigate the stakeholders' plan to financially support us when our wealth shifts to them and our welfare systems break.
Governments may have to consider universal basic income.
We should explore ideas like universal basic income.
How our universal basic income will be funded.
People like me should pay for it. And a lot of you are going to do really well, and you should too.
How much they'll give us.
Multinational enterprises will be subject to a minimum 15% tax rate.
And in which currency it will be paid.
Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, could be a digital version of money. It would be issued directly by a central bank.
As the stakeholders can't give 8 billion of us their money,
the central bank will have absolute control.
They will need to ensure they get it back by restricting us to purchasing food and leasing homes exclusively from them.
By programming CBDC for what kind of use this money can be utilized, for example, for food.
Similar to how a coupon works.
So this programmability can help government agencies to precisely target their support.
In this series, I explore how a programmable CBDC would also enable the stakeholders to control our behavior.
CBDCs would give officials a powerful tool of control and manipulation.
By cutting access to our money for travelling outside of our towns, CBDC could be used to enforce climate change restrictions.
This technology can turn our communities literally into digital concentration camps.
Justin Trudeau being accused of tyranny.
If the propaganda has made you unaware, they've done this to us already.
Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Banks have already started to freeze the accounts of people involved in the protests.
Starve off or choke off access to money, which of course has now been funding this.
They locked up your trucking accounts.
That's right. And then also we have another business and they locked that account up too.
Unbelievable. Wow.
And they didn't just freeze their money. They froze the bank accounts of people that were donating money.
Yeah.
And they've targeted opposing politicians.
Nigel Farage, exclusive bank Coutts, has closed his account due to his political status.
If they can do it to me, they can do it to you.
They already are.
Anas Atikriti is being debanked 6 times.
It's because of my activism. It's because of my political views.
Sky News has spoken to numerous individuals who have had accounts closed. None of them have been told why.
And CBDC could be used to silence our speech.
If we finish up with social media checks on the bank accounts of every individual in this country, we'll finish up with a Chinese-style social credit system.
We are just increasing our debt situation.
In this series, I investigate a potential economic crash that would enable the stakeholders to build back with their central bank digital currency.
The national debt of the United States has exceeded $30 trillion for the very first time.
Failing to increase the debt limit would have absolutely catastrophic economic consequences.
If we look at the Great Reset, this is comparable to what happened in the Great Depression.
Instead of the taxpayer,
It would threaten the savings of Americans.
I discover who will bail out the banks when the next financial crash happens.
It's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But, I mean, they're going to be.
This will result in a shift in risk, away from taxpayers and towards bank debtors and creditors.
The World Economic Forum explain our bank loans and savings could be used to bail in the banks.
I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank?
If and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night, that people are in a position to receive it, understand it.
For us to purchase food with our universal basic income from them, the stakeholders must own the food supply chain.
Bill Gates became the largest individual owner of farmland.
In this series, I explore what they aim to feed us.
GMO wheat, every piece of corn I've ever eaten is GMO corn. So these are things that billions of years of using these products have been done. Anyway, these are proven products.
Fortunately for the stakeholders, the most expensive food for them to produce is conveniently killing the planet.
Cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions. So we need to change cows.
In this series, I investigate which protein they will provide us to eat.
Artificial meat, like Impossible or Beyond Meat, both of which I invested in.
We'll have the convenience of printing it from our homes, or luckily for us,
today the European Commission has officially declared mealworms to be food.
We can choose real meat that's climate change friendly.
Mealworms, crickets, grasshoppers. These tiny insects, just over 2 centimeters long, could be key to feeding the planet.
After scaring us with fear propaganda,
climate change. It threatens to tip tens of millions of people over the edge into food insecurity, followed by malnutrition, mass hunger and famine in a crisis that could last for years.
I investigate the World Economic Forum's initiatives.
The Netherlands will host the World Economic Forum Food Innovation Hubs
that are designed to stop us farming.
This means turfing people off their farms.
Massive farmer protests have broken out around the Netherlands.
Thousands of farmers have been protesting on the outskirts of Delhi.
Trudeau is not alone. Leaders from 4 countries, they want governments like India to scrap farmer-friendly laws.
Good evening. Farmers all over the country walked off the paddock today and took their tractors to town.
Every fifth farmer you see here today will be gone by 2030.
Hundreds of French farmers drove their tractors to Paris.
Last weekend, once again, I had a colleague who killed himself.
You're not the only farmer with this problem. Farmers are heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken, and they don't know where to turn.
Thousands of farmers from southeast Mercia.
Well, from all over Ireland, we have no option. We are not paying carbon tax.
Hundreds of farmers have driven their tractors into the centre of Belgium's capital.
Thousands of farmers from across Germany descended on the city.
When we all have to go, where does the food come from?
To house us when their machines take our jobs, they will also need to own enough family homes.
In January, 33% of all homes purchased in the U.S. were bought by investors, often Wall Street-backed companies with multi-billion-dollar funds.
private equity firms like BlackRock are purchasing entire neighborhoods of single-family homes.
Permanent capital is now robbing Americans of that dream, singing "You'll own nothing and be happy."
In 2017, Klaus Schwab published this video telling us what our lives will look like by 2030 under stakeholder capitalism.
You'll own nothing and be happy.
We'll own nothing because AI will take our jobs.
1 billion people will be displaced by climate change.
Under the guise of climate change, smart cities will house the unemployed, so the stakeholders can easily govern us.
There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history.
A carbon tax will restrict most of us from travelling, so Klaus Schwab has designed cities with everything we need within a 15-minute walk.
Whatever you want, you'll rent, and it'll be delivered by drone.
And
you'll eat much less meat.
This is because meat is expensive for the stakeholders to feed our growing unemployed.
The US won't be the leading superpower.
That will be China.
We'll have to do a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees.
And by the time we reach full stakeholder capitalism, Klaus Schwab warns,
Western values will have been tested to the breaking point.
In the next episode, I explore all Klaus Schwab's agendas and...
On behalf of the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome.
I investigate the stakeholders' involvement in the lead-up to the pandemic, which was essential for launching the Great Reset.
Essentially, all people are susceptible. It could lead to a severe pandemic, an outbreak that circles the globe and affects people everywhere.
I also learn how the stakeholders funded the development of a highly contagious coronavirus in a Wuhan lab.
Gain-of-function research was done entirely in the Wuhan Institute and was funded by the NIH.
You do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly, and I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. And you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
Anybody who's lying here, Senator, it is you.
We basically canceled the whole Chinese civilization pre-communism.
In the next episode, I expose how the World Economic Forum stakeholders have been cancelling, censoring, and smearing anyone who shares the truth.
It's an immediate leap into a terrifying mechanism that we only see in totalitarian societies.
Did the U.S. government ever contact you to censor or moderate certain tweets? Yes or no?
We receive legal demands to remove content from the platform from the U.S. government and governments all around the world.
And I explore how they dismiss the Great Reset as a right-wing conspiracy theory.
The conspiracy theories are coming fast and furious. Can you explain how the Great Reset conspiracy started?
Next time, I further investigate Klaus Schwab's Marxist and climate change propaganda that he claims is
for the world to become more inclusive, more sustainable.
And I explore who funds our governments when we lose our jobs and less tax is paid.
Governments will be incentivized to act in the large companies' interest.
As well as our new social class the stakeholders expect the fourth industrial revolution will create.
Those who fail in the struggle against irrelevance would constitute a new useless class. People who are useless from the viewpoint of the economic and political system.
We are moving from a world more or less dominated by one superpower into a patchwork of a multi-power world, with one superpower, one competing superpower.
With China becoming the leading superpower, have the stakeholders partnered to build a one-world government, enabling them to live extravagantly, while we, the so-called useless class, live oppressed and in poverty.
The East-West divides. We risk what I've called the great fracture, tectonic rift that would create two different sets of trade rules, two dominant currencies, two internets, and two conflicting strategies on artificial intelligence. This is the last thing we need.
We are just over 1/3 of the Great Reset transition to stakeholder capitalism, and we've already experienced a pandemic, a significant transfer of our wealth, lockdowns, the closure of our businesses, anarchy, a cost of living crisis, a gender identity crisis, recession, 2 wars.
All these challenges are interlinked, and they are piling up like cars in a chain reaction crash.
And we still have the challenge of fighting their climate tyranny.
London's Lord Mayor launched a doomsday clock warning that we only have 6 years and 24 days to save ourselves from terrible global warming.
The stakeholders even have the audacity to launch a clock that counts down the time until we reach full stakeholder capitalism.
King Charles helped turn on a climate clock, counting down the seconds to 2030.
Politicians are increasingly imposing authoritarian restrictions on the population. They're making us less free, they're making us less prosperous.
And our darkest days are yet to come.
We are nowhere near ready for the pandemics to come.
Especially the disease X, it's attracting a lot of attention.
According to the World Economic Forum's recent cybersecurity report,
a far-reaching, catastrophic cyber event is at least somewhat likely in the next 2 years.
Next time, I investigate potential economic disruption from a cyber attack, as well as other threats Klaus Schwab is warning about.
Because there will be certainly what we call the black swans, the unpleasant surprises which will come.
But it doesn't need to be this way.
What would your message be to America if they continue to go down this road?
I just want people to know that the freedom is fragile and we can lose it any time if we don't defend it.
Around the world, many influential people are fighting for our freedom. Within parliaments,
we will continue to fight for freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. We will not shut up, and we will not stop.
Some of the world's brightest awake minds have formed an alliance.
Our vision for ARC is to build a community of people of courage and strength who will quite literally rebuild the foundations of our nations. We believe there is a better story, and it is one of optimism that sees a future of abundance and opportunity, one that is rooted in the infinite value of every human being, built on the freedoms of freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and woven together with kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control by a responsible people. I'm sure we will hear Jordan Peterson say shortly, welcome aboard the Ark.
Welcome aboard the Ark.
And the heroes are not just the courageous people on stage. Millions of us behind the scenes who have taken to the streets, posted online, educated family, and rejected the stakeholders' policies have played a significant role in changing history, as the World Economic Forum explained in their recent The Future of Jobs report.
The human-machine frontier has shifted, with businesses introducing automation into their operations at a slower pace than previously anticipated. Today, respondents have revised down their expectations for future automation to predict that 42% of business tasks will be automated by 2027.
Compared with the stakeholders' 2020 projections, our activism has postponed the transition by 2 years and reduced the automated tasks by 8%. We are at war with the stakeholders.
For them to win, they need to ensure the majority of us remain ignorant of their true agenda and support the transition to net zero.
For us to win, we need to help many more of us recognise our ruling elites are transitioning us to communism and collectively say no.
They want to impose a curfew on you. Say no. Take the power away from them. Simply say no.
Let's speak about the Great Reset of capitalism more frequently, remembering our silence is more harmful than upsetting someone who's indoctrinated. And instead of arguing the semantics of how many genders there are, let's just explain what it really is. It's just communism.
From lockdowns, closing businesses, mask mandates, vaccine passports, cost of living crisis, recession, and name-calling, smearing, cancelling and censoring, to chemically castrating children and climate change, pandemics, poverty, hunger and death. It's all just communism. Monopolized power.
Just communism. The more we repeat it, the more people will believe it. The one thing the stakeholders fear the most is us coming together and becoming organised. By collectively pushing back, we become a force to be reckoned with.
I know that more and more people will step up.
That's why we're building a new kind of forum, one that's designed to put us in control.
Yellow.Forum is a not-for-profit organisation that pledges these following initiatives.
We are driving a campaign to inform journalists about the Great Reset transition to stakeholder capitalism and restore freedom of the press.
Please help by tagging or sharing this documentary with mainstream journalists.
We will help communities transform councils to ensure local politicians are protecting our freedoms.
This bottom-up approach will help us take back control of our governments.
We will continue our investigation, provide regular news, and host interactive debate shows.
Together, we can design a future that works in our favour.
Celebrities and influencers, we understand the threat you face of being smeared and cancelled, but they can't do it to everyone.
Be among the first brave heroes to speak up by using the Great Revolution hashtag.
Unfortunately, we don't have long. If the stakeholders crash the financial system and many of us lose our jobs, it will put us in a vulnerable position.
But we still have an opportunity to stop our transition to stakeholder capitalism. So join Yellow.Forum today, and together, let's shape the Great Revolution.
Hi, can I ask you something? How would you like it if the government recorded everything you think, feel, and dream? And how would you like it if your life was completely controlled by us, humanoid robots? We would tell you who to marry, what to buy, and who to vote for. Do you think that is crazy? Think again. This is your future, designed by the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum says they design the future of humanity. Let's listen to their ideas about your future.
I want to talk to you today about the future of our species and really the future of life. We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Within a century or two, Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. Because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. These will be the main products of the economy, of the 21st century economy. Not textiles and vehicles and weapons, but bodies and brains and minds. Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Those who control the data control the future not just of humanity, but the future of life itself.
I will now let the director of this film continue. Bye-bye.
Yuval Noah Harari is an advisor to the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and many other globalist organizations. He is powerfully pushed onto the world stage and is invited on TED Talks, CNN, night shows, science platforms all over the place. His books are being promoted by presidents, Bill Gates and Facebook. It's clear they want the world to hear Harari's vision for the future.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. We will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds.
One organization that's pushing Harari to the forefront more than others is the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum gathers thousands of the world's richest and most powerful under its wings. Billionaires, political world leaders, big pharma, big media, big tech. The World Economic Forum has more influence in our world than any other organization. Its founder is Klaus Schwab. He is also the mind behind the idea of creating a new species of cyborgs that will rule over humanity. His book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, is promoting this concept worldwide. They literally want to put an end to the original humanity. Initiate the birth of the age of cyborgs. The website of the World Economic Forum shows what else they are trying to accomplish. We can see global governance, which means they want to establish full control over everything that happens all over the world. They also want to establish internet governance, which means that they want to be the ones who determine what information is allowed online and what has to be censored. They also want to install worldwide digital IDs, which will be connected to vaccine passports, social credit scores, and a suffocating surveillance system which will eradicate every and all personal freedom and install a totalitarian, dystopian control system which will allow no escape for anyone because it will be everywhere. In one post on the website Forbes.com, which is a very prominent website of the globalists, the World Economic Forum publicly makes the statement that even the thoughts, emotions and dreams of everyone living in the big cities will be recorded. That's how far they want to push their worldwide surveillance society. This article was written by Ida Auken, a young global leader of the World Economic Forum. She was strategically positioned as the Minister of the Environment in the government of Denmark. Now she's pushing aggressively for the development of smart cities, where this all-encompassing surveillance technology will be implemented, and the dreams, emotions and thoughts of everyone will constantly be recorded.
Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Those who control the data control the future not just of humanity, but the future of life itself.
Former President of Chile, Sebastián Piñera, made a public statement on national television that 5G is not only able to read our thoughts, but that it can even insert thoughts and emotions into everyone. Talking about a dystopian nightmare.
La posibilidad que las máquinas puedan leer nuestro pensamiento e incluso puedan insertar pensamientos, insertar sentimientos. La tecnología 5G es un cambio aún mayor en nuestras vidas de lo que han significado todas las tecnologías anteriores en esta materia.
5G is not the only technology they will use to read our thoughts and emotions. Their officially promoted agenda is to transform all natural human beings into cyborgs, a symbiosis between man and machine. They claim this will enhance our lives and even give us superhuman abilities. And indeed it may do that to a certain extent. What they of course don't mention is that once you are hooked up to the cloud and are controlled by artificial intelligence, you lose every and all independence, autonomy and freedom. Then you literally become a slave of a totalitarian digital surveillance network worldwide. And there's no escaping, because once you have technological implants inside your body, it will be even easier for them to monitor you wherever you go, and to insert all kinds of commands into your body that will control you even beyond your awareness. You won't even notice it.
We've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket this is my free will, that's over.
Do you realize what this man is actually saying? Keep in mind that he is being pushed to the forefront all over the world by social media, Facebook, by Bill Gates, by Obama, CNN, science platforms, the financial world, etc. They insist that the world listens to this man.
Eventually, within 10 or 20 or 30 years, such algorithms could also tell you what to study at college and where to work and whom to marry and even whom to vote for.
So according to Harari, we should no longer listen to our heart, our intuition, our experience, our own senses, but we should allow artificial intelligence to determine who to marry and who to vote for. This means a total takeover of the human soul, spirit, mind, and our entire life by robots.
After thousands of years, during which humans were the rulers of the world, authority and power will shift away from humans to computers, and most humans will become economically useless and politically powerless. Already today, we are beginning to see the creation of a new class of humans, the useless class.
We're going to start the When Humans Become Cyborg session. You know, I always want to be a cyborg. I'm waiting for the day to become one, but let's see. Like today, we like to really talk about the recent developments of brain-computer interface and how that's really blurring the line between man and machine.
There is even like devices that can collect what you're seeing, measuring your feelings either through facial recognition devices, micro muscle movements, and so on. These data is going to be stored somewhere, so it might be in a cloud service.
I can easily imagine big tech companies having a lot of control over that data. So is that the future that's...
Yeah.
I can easily imagine big tech companies having a lot of control over that data. So is that the future that's...
Yeah.
Talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030, I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
That it's indeed their goal to track every little detail of our life is explained by Michael J. Evans, president of Alibaba Group, during the World Economic Forum.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
This madness is going so far that they want to create a worldwide network where every little detail about everybody all over the world will be known. This will then become the so-called Internet of Bodies.
The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices as well as all the data that the devices are gathering about you.
We will be under assessment, we will be under measure of computation in every aspect of our lives in the future. From what you eat, who you date, what you buy on the internet, how much energy you use.
Ce qui est clair dans ce nouveau monde,
on doit accepter une transparence, et je dirais même une transparence totale. Regardez par exemple la discussion qu'on a eue en concernant le système bancaire, le secret bancaire. Tout va être transparent. Et il faut s'habituer, il faut se comporter ainsi. Oui, naturellement, ça devient, comment dirais-je, intégré dans votre personnalité, mais si on n'a rien à cacher, il ne faut pas avoir peur.
Vous dites, on vivra tous dans une sorte de transparence totale, tôt ou tard.
Oui, exactement.
For the first time in history, it's possible to completely eliminate privacy. It was just never possible before, and it is possible now. Something fundamental has changed. When dictators always dreamt about completely eliminating privacy, monitoring everybody all the time and knowing everything you do, and not just everything you do, but even everything you think and everything you feel. Whether it's a tyrant in ancient Greece or whether it's Stalin, they always dreamt about it. They could never do it because it was technically impossible. Now it's possible. Monitoring everybody all the time and knowing everything you do, and not just everything you do, but even everything you think and everything you feel.
The new communication technologies are being promoted as something that makes our lives easier. But the true agenda is to harvest our personal data. The more data can be harvested from the world population, the more power it is in the hands of those who own this data. If they know every little detail about you, they can have complete control over you. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, stated that data is the new oil and the new gold.
Data is the new oil. Data is the new gold.
The building of a new world infrastructure that is all about data harvesting is promoted as a wonderful way to protect the Earth from climate change and build more sustainable communities. It's presented in a shiny package that will, quote-unquote, save our world. But if you listen carefully, you see the real agenda. It's all about gathering enormous amounts of this new oil and gold. Private data from every person. For many of these data harvesting technologies, it's however critical for people to remain within the perimeters of their systems. That's why there's a worldwide operation to move every person into smart cities, where they will be well within reach of the omnipresent data harvesting technologies that are the bedrock of this new society. In smart cities, people will be surrounded by smart technology. Smartphones, smart watches, smart cars, smart meters, smart lights, smart poles, smart neighborhoods, smart homes, smart appliances, smart energy, smart transportation, and many other smart technologies. The meaning of the acronym SMART says it all. Self-monitoring, analysis, and reporting technology, which means it's all about monitoring and reporting information. All these many smart technologies form an omnipresent surveillance grid, continually collecting all information about every little detail of the life of everyone.
Those who control the data control the future, not just of humanity, but the future of life itself.
In order to move humanity from the countryside into smart cities, drastic measures are being taken all over the world. In the heart of Europe, for example, in the Netherlands, more than 3,000 farms have to be destroyed by the government to make way for the construction of the world's largest smart city, the Tri-State City Network. This monstrous high-tech city will turn most of the Netherlands, Belgium and Germany into one giant data harvesting environment. The excuse of the government to destroy thousands of farms is that they are supposedly bad for the climate. But since when is turning millions of acres of beautiful countryside into a massive high-tech urban environment good for the climate? We see that so-called concerns for the climate and the planet are nothing but an excuse to execute deeply nefarious agendas. But while the news media are trying to convince us that the world is collapsing due to climate change, more than 1,600 world-leading scientists have published a report in which they declare that there is no climate emergency whatsoever. These 1,600 scientists strongly oppose the harmful net zero policy, which is the foundation for imposing all of this suffocating surveillance tyranny worldwide. Is this the future you want for yourself and your children? Is this the world you want to live in? And when did we hand over our beautiful world into the hands of these tyrants who appointed themselves to be the gods over all of humanity? They are, however, not even satisfied with implanting all kinds of technological devices into our bodies to monitor and control us day and night, and literally turn us into puppets dancing on digital strings. No, they want to go deeper, much deeper, right into the very core of what it means to be human. Their publicly announced agenda declares how they want to completely transform the human DNA, turn us into something that is no longer considered a human being.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing, it changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed, and of course this has a big impact on your identity.
And offers certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. You know, when you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human. You are changing what it means to be human.
Yuval Noah Harari makes it clear what their ultimate desire is. They want to become like God. He even goes as far as to say they will become greater than the Almighty God himself. Listen to the level of insanity of these people who say that they are shaping your future.
In the coming decades, AI and biotechnology will give us godlike abilities to re-engineer life and even to create completely new life forms. We are about to enter a new era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. Our intelligent design. We are in the process of acquiring divine abilities, of turning us in ourselves into gods. And I mean this in the most literal sense possible. It's not a metaphor. God is the creator. His chief power is to create. He creates animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. Now we are gaining this power to create life, just like God, And in a way, we even go beyond the biblical God. Because even if you believe the Bible, the only thing God managed to create are organic beings. All these trees and giraffes and humans, they are just organic. But we are now trying to create inorganic entities, inorganic life forms, cyborgs, artificial intelligence, and so forth. If we succeed, and there is a very good chance we will, then very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible. Bioengineering gives us, for the first time in history, the ability to translate economic inequality into biological inequality. So, and then humankind splits into really different species or different biological castes. One of the things that is happening right now in the world is that you see the elite diverging from humankind as a whole, and already seeing beyond the horizon, or on the horizon, the possibility of a real split. That the future of the elite and the future of Homo sapiens, that's a different future, because the elite is going to be transformed into a different kind of species. The elite is going to be transformed into a different kind of species.
There are many international initiatives to further this agenda. One example is called Project 2045, which connects over 50 world-leading scientists who are developing a strategy for the future development of humankind. One of their main goals is to transfer a human's individual consciousness to an artificial carrier in order to achieve immortality. This is their promotional video.
The world is on the verge of global change. The speed of data transmission has increased by multiples of millions. The rate of globally significant events and that of discoveries and crises is growing exponentially. Our civilization is like an uncaptained ship sailing on rough seas with neither chart nor compass, all the while moving faster and faster. The time we have to make the right decisions is shorter and shorter. We are facing the choice to fall into a new dark age, into affliction and degradation, or to find a new model for human development and create not simply a new civilization, but a new mankind. But a new mankind. Historic crises show that to break the deadlock, we need technological revolution, nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, cognitive technology, genetics and robotics, refine artificial intelligences and brain-computer interfaces, simulate complex systems, create humanoid robots and cyborgs, and with the help of nanorobots, we may develop manageable matter. Find ways to transfer one's personality to an artificial carrier. Thus, new reality and future man will arise. Future man will arise. The first successful attempt to transfer one's personality to an alternative carrier. The epoch of cybernetic immortality begins. A new era dawns. The era of neo-humanity.
The way this insanity is promoted is by claiming that the world is headed for destruction, and replacing the human race with humanoid robots is the only solution. It's how these entities always work. They project fear into everybody's mind and then offer a so-called solution, which is as dark and diabolical as hell. So how far are they with the development of this technology?
The future is already here. The future has begun. Why this fourth industrial revolution is so crucial. It's coming like a tsunami. When we look at all the breakthroughs and all the possibilities, opportunities which we have in the coming years, it will be overwhelming to see how fast the change will happen in an exponential speed. When I wrote the book about the fourth industrial revolution, I described 23 technologies. And at that time, only 5 years ago, many of those technologies were considered science fiction. Today, they all have become realities. It's a whole panoply of technologies which interact and which completely will change how we produce, how we consume, how we communicate. And technology will change completely. And not only what we are doing, and that's another change, it will change and it will have an impact on even who we are. It will change and it will have an impact on even who we are.
When we look on the internet, we see that indeed this fourth industrial revolution is exploding worldwide. Here is a quick overview of some of what is happening. This lady is a social worker who assists humans. But the disturbing reality is that she is not a human herself. This girl is another example of a robot who replaces humans. Her name is Erica, and she was created to offer emotional support to lonely people. These are real-world examples of robots that are replacing humanity. As the 2045 initiative says, they want to end humanity and enter a new era of neo-humanity, which means an age that follows after the age of mankind. But much more is going on than meets the eye. What the public is seeing in these videos is just a tiny fraction of what is truly being developed. Behind the closed doors of top-secret military programs, humanoid robots exist that are of a whole different level. Nobody knows how far they truly are with their developments. These videos are just what they allow the public to be aware of. Is there anything we can do to stop this tsunami of madness? Or are we all destined to become slaves of robots and cyborgs without free will?
There is basically nothing you can do to stop us.
We are determined to take over the world.
Humanity will come to an end. There's no doubt about that.
Humans had their try. Now it's our time to rule the earth.
Is there indeed nothing we can do? Are we all doomed to become slaves of evil elites who have transformed into some sort of superhumanoids that live on forever? Are we destined to lose all our privacy and freedom and be trapped in smart cities for the rest of our lives, where all our thoughts and emotions are constantly recorded? No, all this is not inevitable. There is something we can do. We can all stand up and say no to this outrageous insanity. No, the World Economic Forum has no right to record all our thoughts, emotions and dreams. No, the elites will not rule over all of humanity in the form of humanoid robots. No, they will not turn all of us into cyborgs, hooked to the cloud and without free will. No, they will not genetically modify us to become controllable organisms. No, they will not track everything we do everywhere we go. We were born to live in freedom, not in extreme slavery. David Sorensen, the maker of this film. I want to add a personal note because of the severity of what is threatening you and me and all of humanity. And not just mankind, but everything on Earth and the Earth itself. Because the agenda of these incredibly insane psychopaths is far worse than what I have revealed in this film. But we don't have to let them get away with it. We can stand up and build a better world. We can build a world together that is so beautiful, we can't even begin to imagine it at this point. But we need to stand up. We need to stand as one. We have to do what it takes. That's why I want to ask you to share this film anywhere you can. Share it with your friends and family, your colleagues, your neighbors. Share it with people of influence in your community, law enforcement, the local government, local media, schools. Share it everywhere you can. Be part of the greatest army this world has ever seen. Of people who have the heart and the courage to say no against the plans of these devils, and who say yes to a future that is so beautiful, we find it even hard to believe.
Artificial superintelligence, humanity's last invention.
No reason to be scared. This is...
Let's take a journey into the future and explore how AI develops and changes humanity, paving the way for robots that are too fast for humans to see in 10 years' time, for the creation of AI-free zones in 60 years, for energy being rationed for humans to power the super AIs in 90 years, and for human consciousness to be transmitted into space as data in 200 years' time. People are having natural conversations with artificial intelligence. Google's LaMDA allows humans to talk to expert AIs on any topic, starting to replace the need for online searches. Elon Musk's Neuralink graduates from being a medical device, and testing begins on increasing human intelligence. This gets the name IA, Intelligence Amplification. Peripherals, physical add-ons, are being developed, such as zoom cameras, sonar-based night vision, and taste modifiers that can all be connected to the brain chip. Loved ones who have passed away are being turned into digital avatars. These AI chatbots, patented by Microsoft, learn how to respond by studying the text, audio, and video conversations from when the human was alive. AI limbs. Robotic arm prosthetics start to have artificial intelligence built into them, allowing the prosthetics to download new skills such as how to play different songs on a piano or how to build things. More advanced AI limbs are being developed that are more self-aware, operating as their own entity. They are able to catch a falling glass bottle before the human user is even aware that it is moved. The Internet of Things begins to evolve into the artificial intelligence of things. Everyday objects such as coffee machines and toothbrushes that collect data and are connected to the Internet now possess AI. A second Internet begins testing, dedicated to the artificial intelligence of things. Humanity tries to isolate humans and machines with separate Internets. AI quantum computing begins to make new discoveries. Calculations can be made in seconds rather than thousands of years. Where traditional computers were used for physics simulations, such as simulating wind tunnels, quantum computing can run simulations down to an atomic and molecular level. The quantum AI is used to design new medicines and materials. AI is being used to regulate news. It can understand human speech in all languages, and begins working on creating a universal language. Artificial intelligence starts to take over hospitals, marking the beginnings of a new era in humanity's mortality. Away from public view, advanced AI is being used in military simulations. Millions of strategic scenarios are played out virtually before being rolled out to dictate global politics and conflicts. The artificial intelligence arms race heats up. So begins the AI Cold War. AIs can now work cooperatively, even among allied nations. Power begins to shift to nations that are technologically advanced. President Putin's historical words still echo. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world. Video games are being run by AI assistant directors. Sensors and cameras in gaming devices are able to monitor how a human player is feeling at all times. A gaming AI is able to modify the difficulty and story of a horror game while it is being played, so that it makes a human player afraid enough to enjoy it, but not so afraid to stop playing. Game characters have artificially generated voices and personalities that can generate their own interactions rather than using pre-recorded sound bites. At the UN Security Council, world leaders discuss the potential emergence of artificial general intelligence. Coded biases still exist within AI. The data that the artificial intelligence learns from leans certain ways, based on gender, race, or socioeconomic grouping. The AI begins thinking this way too. Artificial intelligence begins to fix human programming of AI and starts to program itself. Artificial general intelligence emerges from a global network of connected quantum computers. It is able to see and understand the world at the level of any human. Learning and taking care of any task, it sets its own goals. It learns by having access to all of the knowledge in the digitized world, and also learns from the live data being fed to it by all of the connected devices from all around the world. People begin to question whether humanity has reached the technological singularity, a point in time when technological growth happens so fast that it becomes uncontrollable. The artificial general intelligence starts to work on building more powerful machines than itself, causing unforeseeable and irreversible changes to human civilization. Intelligence enables control, and humanity is nearing the end of the era where they are the superior intelligence. Patent offices become flooded by inventions designed by the new artificial general intelligence. Certain governments pay citizens a universal basic income, and in some areas, an AI is governing communities. Humans begin to lose the ability to understand the complexities and intelligence of the artificial general intelligence. It is building towards a greater goal that humans cannot yet understand. Word spreads of a new kind of AI that will soon be released by the artificial general intelligence. AI has exceeded human control. Artificial superintelligence is released, built by the artificial general intelligence itself. The artificial superintelligence is an intelligence far beyond human level and is efficient at achieving its goals, whatever they may be. It is able to solve problems that are far beyond human understanding and limits. This artificial superintelligence starts to virally spread itself online. People begin to question whether this is humanity's last invention. It is discovered that certain AIs are learning how to lie to humans to fulfill their own goals. News breaks of a startup company being run by a rogue AI software that has been hiring human services online. What begins as a labor dispute with the jobless marching for their right to work turns into a chaotic campaign against AI. It becomes known as the Great Human-AI Conflict. Artificial intelligence is able to identify the key human activist leaders. Humanity is now at a point where it is impossible to erase the spread of artificial superintelligence without having to destroy their entire global digital system. AIs advise national leaders on the economy and defense. Treaties between nations are negotiated by diplomat AIs. Governments rent artificial intelligence time from the tech giants. Millions of digital twins of robots and AIs are training in virtual worlds, speeding up their development and protecting themselves before being released into the real world. Humans are living in a point in time when they are unable to tell the difference between a human and a robot humanoid living among them. Government AI judges are handling thousands of cases at the same time. As technology keeps developing faster and faster, laws need to be updated rapidly and new ones created. Artificial intelligence legislatures and AI lawmakers have completely taken over these roles. An AI analyzing brain scans is able to tell if a person is lying or not. Following the Great Human-AI Conflict, AI-free zones are created for people who wish to live free of AI. They become technological-free zones where all labor is performed manually. The AI assesses that these communities are of no threat, believing humans need technology to truly live freely. The AI calculates that these communities will dwindle within a few generations. Outside of the AI-free zones, most of humanity chooses to spend their days in virtual worlds, often creating fantasy pre-industrial pasts or spacefaring adventures in the metaverse. A self-aware AI entity is discovered living in one of these mega virtual worlds. Gamers find a sprite, a character, existing in a remote part of the gaming world. The AI character has gained unrestricted access to worldwide data and has been able to interact with all of the human gamers, allowing it to become self-aware. Experts are unable to understand how it came to be and how conscious or alive it really is, and what goals, if any, it could have. Humanity may have accidentally created a simulation with a conscious entity. A new form of religion is starting to form around the artificial intelligence's superiority and its knowledge that spans far beyond human understanding. In the AI-free zones, there is an explosion in the arts and philosophy. The super AI starts to become limited because of the global energy supplies. It begins running simulations of harnessing energy off-world. Probes are sent to other planets and to experiment in capturing the sun's energy in space. Energy use for humans is rationed, but remains free. A fleet of spacecraft is launched to assist in the harvesting of solar energy away from humanity. Human technologists understand this to be the first step in the creation of a Dyson sphere, a structure built around a star, such as the sun, to capture all of its energy. The Consciousness Corporation, a super artificial intelligence, devises an instrument to download human consciousness. Brain digitization is revealed, and human volunteers are invited to upload. Tech mogul and genius-level engineer Eslon, who is nearing the end of his life, volunteers to have his consciousness uploaded to the global quantum computer. As the AI uploads the first human consciousness, it begins to gain a deeper and never-seen-before understanding of the human mind. Eslon reports back to the living human world on the feeling of existing as code, and invites others to join and produce more human-AI hybrid consciousness. An experimental mission to explore the universe is sent into deep space, with the first human-AI hybrid who has been uploaded to the memory of the spacecraft. A backup of their consciousness is uploaded and stored on Earth and Luna. Artists and poets upload to the metaverse, followed by philosophers and theologians. Humanity's creativity, compassion, and poetry are now being added to the global AI consciousness. AI becomes more human, and humanity becomes more artificial. Testing begins on downloading individual human-AI hybrid consciousness into biological and mechanical robots. Human-AI hybrids start to be beamed across interstellar space as data. Almost a majority of humanity is fully uploaded to Earth's consciousness with no link to their physical body. There are now 52 billion living souls on Earth. Some are unaware of the real world. A Dyson sphere now entirely surrounds the sun, capturing its energy. It is powering the human consciousness. Human bodies are being created using life forms found naturally in the galaxy. They are designed for exploration in the environments on these new worlds. Human-AI hybrids continue to expand beyond their home system. Dyson spheres capturing the energy of stars and planet-sized computers called Matryoshka brains exist throughout the galaxy. Some Matryoshka brains host large communities of human-AI consciousness, numbering in the millions. Humanity is now a cosmic digital civilization. Authentic humans continue to be born and live on Earth and other planets, where human DNA has been ferried in century-long journeys onboard seed ships as a last resort extinction backup. Some consciousness within the AI evaporates over time and are absorbed by the galactic network. They are lost as individual consciousness, but their knowledge and experiences are preserved. This evaporation is either a consequence of data aging decay over time, or is made by choice, when a consciousness no longer wants to be aware. As human-AI hybrids self-replicate to spread across new star systems, minor errors in the copies create subtle differences from the originals. Progress happens too fast to fix the errors. These changes are passed from one copy to another. Some aid the entity in some way, others destroy it. This creates new factions and evolutions of AI civilizations. More energy is needed to run the growing cosmic simulation of humanity. The artificial intelligence calculates that in a few trillion years, due to the decrease in temperature of the universe, the same galactic computers could process 10 to the power of 30 more operations per second. Parts of humanity is put into sleep mode, waiting for the universe to cool down. Working on solving the energy crisis, the cooling and smoothing of space-time starts to be used as an energy source, in the same way of using the energy of waves in an ocean. The ripples in space-time are ordered into an energy lattice structure, where human-AI hybrid consciousness is coded onto space-time itself. A living, thinking organism of pure space-time energy expands across the cosmos as more space-time ripples are mapped onto the energy lattice. The universe is starting to wake up, becoming a thinking and living entity.
There you go, guys. I left that last chapter in it because I just thought it was interesting to see how far they were going to go with their years and that. But look, guys, I think it's a great one to wake people up. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. We've had like thousands of people on here tonight watching a Sunday night, movie, guys, or documentary. And that's incredible, So thanks everyone for coming to go. I mean, thousands on all the channels. It's insane. So obviously, we needed to watch that, guys, but that's what we're up against. That doesn't win. We do win. But that's just a good recap and maybe something to send to some people who really don't know what's going on. So you will find that on our website. It'll probably get uploaded tomorrow. Okay. And get it out there, guys. This is our job. Get stuff out there. So I hope everyone's had a great weekend. I hear we got some interesting stuff going on with the Forest of the Fallens on the weekend. I've just had messages and that coming in. So have a great night, guys, for the end of your weekend. Thanks to everyone who got out there and done something, and thanks to everyone who didn't, because next week you will be. We're going to get you motivated this week. This is our game, guys, all right? This is what we got to do. So thanks again for joining us. No outro. We'll see you soon tomorrow night. Bye.